Good afternoon. A new appointment in Real Cases Detective in the series of Made to be a Killer. The series in which we expose every time one of the serial killers to understand how a human being cannot appear much as criminal to a criminal, and not only to a criminal, but rather a serial killer. And you will see the character of our tonight's story. When you look at his picture, it is very difficult to imagine from the beginning that this picture applies to those acts that I will narrate to you. But it is also an episode in which, from now, I tell you that I will put a question and I wait for your special answer. To what extent is any person among us in society responsible for the psychological complexes he is exposed to in his childhood? To what extent can any person among us be responsible for the psychological illnesses that may have come to him from his environment in childhood or from his family? Can he be considered himself responsible, or must we look at the responsibility of this environment? So, think deeply with me about this question, and after I narrate to you the details, present to me your opinions on the subject in the comments. Now, if you're ready, fasten your seatbelts and let us start. Welcome. Our story tonight starts with us from the state of Oregon in America and returns us to the month of May 1969, specifically the day 10 May 1969, when there will be discovered, on the bank of the Santiam River, this river existing in this state, there will be discovered the body of this young woman. We speak about the girl Linda Saley, 22 years old. She was seen for the last time while shopping in the market to buy things, and from that moment, no trace of her. After the discovery of Linda, there became panic and worry in the area, especially since at that time in May 1969, in that place and its surroundings, not only Linda was missing, there were 4 girls. And with the discovery of the second girl, this girl, we speak about Karen Sprinker, 18 years old, missing since 28 March 1969. With her discovery, the area will be terrified, and there will become a kind of certainty that the rest of the girls will certainly be found in the same situation, murdered next to the river, if not in it, because there were elements of similarity between the first body and the second body. There were traces of strangulation on them that led to the death of the victims and other things. So the police decide to do a wide combing operation in this river. And indeed, this operation gave results. The 4 girls who were missing were all found. So, in addition to the 2 girls I mentioned, also were found the bodies of these 2 girls. We speak about another Linda Slauson, 19 years old, working in book sales. She was walking from house to house selling books, disappeared on the 26th of January 1969, and she is the first of the girls who disappeared. Then also was found Susan, the 4th body, 23 years old, who also likewise was found in the river. The 4 bodies were found. They all disappeared between the month of January and the month of May. A group of common factors existed between these bodies. First, the ugliness of the mutilation of the bodies. Cut bodies, bodies without breasts, bodies without legs. Then, the most common factor was the matter of strangulation. All the victims were strangled with a rope. The rope the thing that was remarkable in it, that it had a special knot. This picture of the knot in this rope showed the investigators that it would be the same criminal, the owner of this deed, since it seems each one of us has his own special knot, meaning each one of us, when he ties his shoe, for example, he does not tie it in the way of another person does, and sometimes we can reach you through the tie you make when tying your shoe or a knot you create in a random string. In addition, in this case, this knot in particular reminded investigators of a knot used and created by a certain group of workers, electricians. The electricians who used to check and fix the streetlight cables would tie the cables in this manner. So it came to their minds that the matter has a relation and connection with an electrician, a person working in electricity. Research started immediately about this man. The research at first would go to looking at the last moments of the presence of the girls and the places they were in. And among all the girls, they would find special data only about the girl, Karen, whose surroundings said that since she studied, there was in the area of her study a man who always used to frequent the place, wanting to date one of the girls. Maybe he accompanied Karen. The police watched him closely and set him a trap, since they knew he still frequented the place. And indeed, he fell into the trap and was arrested. Later, it would appear he was a Vietnamese veterinarian, and though it was true he flirted with girls at the university, he had nothing to do with the disappearance of any of the girls, not Karen nor others. So he was quickly released. The investigators returned to the subject of the electrician. One of the investigators in charge of this case insisted, according to his guess, that it cannot be another person except someone either trained in electricity or worker in the field of electricity, because it appeared often to him that this type of knot in particular is that which this type of workers makes in electric cables. So they opened the file of criminal records, especially of those in these sectors. We are speaking of the year 1969. No cameras, no database, no computer sciences, none of those modern means. Meaning, all the means were still somewhat primitive, and reliance was on the acumen of the investigators more than anything else. When they opened this file, they reached striking data. They found an electrician named Jerry Brudos. This Jerry was in his 30s, had 2 sons, married, but had a set of criminal records. And strikingly, he had a stay in a mental hospital. Immediately, the investigator I mentioned went to interrogate him and speak with him. They asked him, after summoning him, to give them his address, where he lives, where they can find him if needed. He gave them an address. They returned to him after a few days to summon him at this address, and found that this address was false. And Jerry, no trace of him. For the police and investigators, maybe this man has a relation to the matter, if not he himself the serial killer they are looking for. For this reason, they searched by their own ways for his real house, and found it. When they entered the house, since they came with a warrant to search the house, because they had suspicions they might find evidence to convict him, the house appeared normal, until they discovered it had a basement. "What do you use this basement for, Mr. Jerry?" asked the investigators after they found him there, and asked why he did not give them his true address. He said, "I got confused and afraid and did not know why you wanted my address, and in the end, I have nothing to hide from you to ask me for my address." "Okay, what do you have in the basement?" "Nothing. I'm only passionate about photography. I photograph." "I have a dark room for photographs. As you know, Mr. Investigator, the photos, when taken by the camera, are put in a dark room to develop them without damage. So, I have a room for photos. That's it. Okay, this dark room, open it for us so we can see what it contains. Why opening it? Excuse me, the photo room for you to see. I have my personal photos, my passion for photos, and I have photos of my wife in certain positions. Why do you want me to let you see them? Come on, Mr. Jerry, we must check. We have a warrant to search all of your house and all its details, with the photos, the dark room, and even the other rooms. So, let us do our work. And Jerry opened the basement for them and they went down. They began to understand why he didn't want them to go down to the basement. Indeed, the investigators found the photo room he spoke about. And indeed, they found photos of his wife, the poor woman. He photographed her naked while doing housework, cleaning the house, wiping the furniture, washing the dishes, while she, wearing high heels, naked and wearing high heels. The high heels will be one of the determining elements in this case. In Jerry's basement, the investigators also found a leg, or human legs, wearing women's shoes. They found women's breasts cut off and placed in plaster. And they found especially photos of the 4 victims who were found in the river, all of them after being killed, naked and wearing high heels. They also found photos of him, Jerry himself, wearing women's underwear, photographed wearing women's shoes. Immediately, he was arrested. The police found everything needed to prove he committed these crimes. And he confessed quickly, telling in detail what he did. He was 30 years old. In a short time, from January to May 1969, he committed 4 crimes. The police wanted to understand, was he hidden before and had old crimes, or did he become a serial killer at the age of 30 within 6 months, and that's it? Jerry confessed in detail. Listen well to what he did to the girls one by one. First girl, Linda Slauson. He kidnapped her. She was selling books, knocked at his door to sell him a book. He hosted her in his house, took her to the basement on the pretext of money being below, strangled her to death, cut her leg, kept it. And since he was obsessed with women's shoes, every day he went down in the basement and changed the shoe on the leg. Her leg. Second girl, Susan. He found her on the road, her car broken down. He offered to take her home to make a phone call. Same trick, said the phone is in the basement. He strangled her, took her underwear, raped her, kept her shoe, and threw her in the river. Third girl, Karen. He kidnapped her from the parking lot, took her to the basement, strangled her, raped her corpse, because he apparently rapes his victims' bodies after killing them. This time, he cut off her breast and made a plaster mold with. Fourth girl, Linda Saley. He kidnapped her leaving the market, strangled her in the car with the seatbelt, took her to the basement, photographed her like the others, cut off her breast, and threw the body in the river. These were the details Jerry narrated to the police. They were shocked, not understanding his obsession with 2 things: high heels and women's underwear. As for the secret of this, we cannot know except when we ask, was Jerry made to kill? Jerome Henry Brudos, born in 1939, is the 3rd son among his brothers, and he was an unwanted child. From here, exactly the tragedy began. His mother, before him, gave birth to 2 sons, and she wanted to give birth to a daughter, but she did not give birth to the daughter, and regretted that she gave birth to a boy, which is Jeremy, and she used to say that clearly. Even so that he hurt her while still small, that she regretted giving birth to him, that she should not have given birth to him, and that if she had known beforehand that he was a male, she would not have given birth to him at all. It seems, because that is what doctors later said, that this matter created a psychological effect in this child, who later would grow carrying this complex, and things did not improve, since his mother not only spoke about him to people as an unwanted, but also was harsh with him, difficult, passing to him no mistake. He especially feared, listen well, the sound of her high heels. His mother used to wear high-heeled shoes, even in the house, so when he heard the sound of the steps of the high heels, he was seized by panic and madness. And from here it would transform into hatred of women, or a certain type of women, in whom he saw his mother through what she did to him. He grew up step by step, passing into adolescence. By the time he was not yet 16, troubling behaviors had already begun to emerge. He would secretly take photographs of neighborhood girls while they were changing, or steal pieces of their clothing from the clothesline and run away with them. But this pattern had roots much earlier. At only 5 or 6 years old, he was caught in a neighbor's house, trying on one of her high-heeled shoes. His mother discovered it, and, in a moment of anger, punished him harshly, beating him with that very shoe. It was a memory that never left him. From that day on, the high-heeled shoe became more than an object. It became a symbol of shame, of punishment, of confusion. Women became a complex, girls became a complex. And so, as Jeremy grew into his mid-teens, the psychological scars deepened. By 16, 17 years old, his behaviors escalated into deviant acts that eventually led to his arrest, always centered on young women and girls. But, at age of 17, the police and court considered him a young boy passing through a somewhat difficult adolescence, so there would not be rulings against him. Except that his mother decided to put him in psychological treatment when specialists told her he needed psychological care, since they had discovered he had a set of complexes that may have come from his childhood. He entered one of the hospitals where he spent 9 months under treatment. Then, upon his release, he was at military age. He entered the U.S. Army, but they also conducted psychological examinations on him there, because in the Army, when someone arrives with a psychological file, they check it. They looked into his file and considered him unfit for military duties, so he was not accepted in the Army. He left the Army and went to study electricity. Didn't we say a while ago that investigators had doubts about an electrician, someone with the trade of electricians? The observation that was deduced from the knot in the cables. And he worked in one of the regional radio stations in the state. And there, when he reached 22 years old, he met his future wife, with whom he now lived. She was a young girl, 17 years old at the time. He met her, and afterwards she became pregnant from him. And afterwards they married, and afterwards they had their first child. And afterwards she discovered his other face. That at home he asked her that each time she did the housework, she do it naked, wearing only high-heeled shoes. Afterwards he began taking photos of her. Then, at some point, she refused the photography, especially after giving birth to their second child. She refused the photography and refused to go along with him in these mad tendencies. And this coincided with January 1969, when a girl knocked at his door and said to him, "I have books I want to sell to you." This young woman was Linda Slauson, the first victim of Jeremy, who was selling books. And through her he would begin a chain of strange, bizarre crimes he committed against 4 girls until he was arrested. During his trial, the court decided to present him again to doctors. The doctors said he maybe suffered from disorders, but disorders that do not exempt him from punishment. and that he knew very well what he was doing. And so, in 1970, he would be sentenced to life imprisonment. But the striking thing in this man's case is that even in prison he continued in the same passion or obsession of his. In his cell, from the pictures he cuts from magazines they receive, he pasted a collection of photos on part of his cell wall, dedicated to high-heeled shoes, pictures, and stickers. He cuts them and puts them in his cell. And on 28 March 2006, Jerry Brudos died in prison. So, was he made to kill? Was Jeremy 100% responsible for all these acts? Or was it what happened to him in his childhood, the psychological illnesses he grew up with, that later he did not treat and no one treated for him, that transformed him into a serial killer? What is your opinion? Leave me your comment and your opinions in the comments, hoping to meet you in the next case, the case, in which we will narrate in it the story of another serial killer who at some time outsmarted the police and who hunted his victims using also his passion in photography. But before I say goodbye, I remind you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and reward us with a thumbs up if you really did enjoy the case. Until we meet in the next one, I say to you, good night.